Rams on Sunday. That's quite a transition, Jenna. These two powerhouses are at or near the top of most people's hierarchy in the NFC this season. Bucs have won 10 straight games. Bucs have scored 30-plus in their last 9. Oh, that's not bad. Meanwhile, Matt Stafford's Rams offense has been nothing shy of stellar in his first 2 games in L.A. What's up, Jared Goff? Here is Tom Brady on Sunday's opponent.
This week's really challenging because they have good players in the secondary and they have a good front. We lost to them last year. And, they're been one of the top-rated defenses in the league. They're one of the greatest defensive players of all time. So everything about this week is challenging. Really good defense, really good offense. We got a long ways to travel. It's a big game for both of us.
We got former NFL head coach Eric Mangini join the conversation. Coach, good morning. We want to start with you, Nick. Great offenses, great defenses. What will be the biggest determining factor, do you think, in America's Game of the Week on Sunday?
Well, so here's the thing. Coach inspired me with his brilliant, Coach inspired me with his brilliant film breakdown of their previous matchup to go back and rewatch when they played last year. Because what I was leaning towards is what's going to determine this game is what Brady alluded to. Does Aaron Donald ruin the football game? Does Aaron Donald, because no quarterbacks like getting pressure, particularly up the middle, but that does seem to be like the one way to stop Tom Brady. Pressure from the edges typically doesn't get to him. I know he had that fumble last week, but that's rare. It's that up the middle pressure. But something really unique happened in that last football game when they played last year. It was the only game all year Aaron Donald had no tackles, no sacks, no stats. He played 90% of the snaps and had no statistical impact. But the Bucs offense did nothing. Brady made a bunch of mistakes and the Rams rolled. And so we talk about this from, like a defense shutting down Travis Kelce. We're going to take away Kelce, but that then means other guys are going to be open. My question is this, Coach. Can the opposite happen too much? Focus so much on one great player that you stop him, but now everyone else gets one-on-ones, everyone else gets free, and that ends up being more, more damaging to your game plan than if Aaron Donald got off. Because it was so weird that Donald did nothing, but it worked for the Rams in their last matchup.
Yeah, it can definitely happen that way, and it can happen in protection. It can happen with coverage. When you focus on one player and you get out of the schemes that you've been working on, it can be difficult for teams to do that if they're not used to doing that. Now, I think that Tampa Bay, a year with Tom, is probably very different than they were when the last time they faced. So they're probably better at doing those things, because there is no way that Tom's going to go into any game and let their best player ruin the game. He's going to make sure that there's plenty of things that they can do to slow him down, whether it's double teaming him, whether it's chipping him, whether it's running right at him. There's a lot of things that you can incorporate. And the danger in that is exactly what you're saying. It opens up other opportunities for guys to make plays, and it puts other players on the offensive line in positions that they're not going to be able to get any help. So you're trying to balance that off of adjusting your game plan to not let the best player ruin the game without getting it so confusing or putting guys in such vulnerable spots that ends up being the reason you lose the game.
Coach, I had another question. I'm looking at the Rams offense, and I think this is the first big test that Matthew Stafford's had since he's been in L.A. Because we know his track record. He has struggled mightily against teams with winning records. He's 8-67 in his career in those types of games. And everybody likes to blame it on Detroit, but he did have Calvin Johnson. There was one point where they had a top 5 defense. He had Ndamukong Suh. They made the playoffs a couple times with Jim Caldwell. So all of those years, all of that wasn't on Detroit. Some of that was on Stafford in those big games. He didn't perform. How confident are you that he's going to go out? And I know Tampa Bay's defense is a bit suspect right now too, but how do you think he'll perform, and what are the keys for him in this big type of game?
Yeah, that is a great point, Chris, and that is something that I was going to bring up as well. We have seen Stafford in a lot of moments where he's played extremely well, but we haven't seen Stafford in a lot of big moments, and this is the first big moment that he's had in a while. And as I say all the time, to whom much is given, much is expected, and he was brought in to dramatically change this offense and to be able to play big in these big games. And it's going to be interesting to see how he responds. I would imagine that they're going to do everything possible to frustrate him early, and I would imagine that the Rams coaches are going to do everything possible to make sure that he settles down and that he's not trying to push things that aren't there. He's not trying to make plays that aren't there to justify his position.
All right, Coach, I'm going to ask you a tricky question. Because you've talked about the key to preparing for games is keeping the outside noise on the outside. Stay focused. And it's just like that in any other person's life. If you're just a normal person watching at home, you know that if you have something big coming up, you're not necessarily at your best, whether you have a surgery, whether you're getting married, whether you're having a baby. The week before that, you're maybe not frazzled, but you might not be 100% focused. Well, this week, as Tom Brady and the Bucs are preparing for the Rams, which might be, the NFC Championship preview, his dad went on with Tom Curran, talked about Tom Brady and the Patriots. And then old Alex Guerrero had a quote, said, Belichick didn't involve. So Tom Brady was asked about it yesterday, about a game that's 9 days away, and they're playing the Rams, but they're asked about the Patriots game. Take a listen.
Everyone has, protective feelings and emotions as friends and family members, and that's just part of being in sports. And you have a lot of people who, because they're not out there, they want to protect, and it's a very caring, loving thing that a lot of people do. But, from my standpoint, I had a great time, but really my focus has been on trying to be the best I could be for this team.
So look, Coach, do I think it will be the determining factor that tips the scales towards the Bucs? Maybe not. But do I think it is a factor? I do. Do you agree with me?
Do I agree with you that him being able to dial
thinking
in
about the Patriots? Yeah, thinking about the Patriots has taken focus off the Rams. Yeah.
No, not at all. And look, for Tom, he's been through years and years and years of drilling and practicing and living, focusing on the moment. That hasn't changed. If you want to talk about muscle memory, he has mental muscle memory of being able to focus on what's in front of him. And look, this happens all the time of your friends or your family or your kids. They want to say something. They get interviewed. They're not necessarily in front of the media very often. They get led down a path, and they say things that can be inflammatory. But for Tom, he understands why they're saying it, and he loves them for being protective. But that's not what he's worried about right now. He's going to go and try to win this game.
What about for you? Hold on, because you were drilled and taught in the same school as Brady. When you took over for the Jets, there wasn't part of your brain that knew immediately when the first matchup against the Patriots was and didn't take any of your focus, any of your preparation away from the week right before? I'm not assuming I know the answer. it'd be incredible if it didn't.
No, you think about those things, but those games don't matter unless you take care of all the things that come up before. Or they end up mattering less unless you take care of the things that come before. Okay. And one of the biggest derailers of success is this idea that you can control anything in the future, you can affect anything in the past. And you spend so much time trying to talk to young guys especially about just being in the moment and dealing with what you're dealing with. And it's a hard thing to do. Tom will be dialed in on the Patriots when it's that time. But right now, he lost last year when they played. He was intercepted twice. He had a chance to come back and tie the game. And a lot of people at that point felt like the experiment wasn't going very well and wasn't going to go very well. So I'm sure that Tom wants to, there's an element of establishing that he can play really well against this defense and he can deal with the challenges that they face, because it's something he didn't do well last year. And that, to me, is where his focus will be.
Muscle memory. Coach, stay in this moment, stay through a commercial break moment, and then come back with us for another segment. We'll have plenty more fun moments that we'll all get to share in. We'll head north up to San Francisco. Aaron Rodgers out to prove his haters wrong. Will he be successful in silencing the trolls? So many fun moments coming up. Don't go anywhere. First things first.
We're back on the Corona Hotline Show with superfan Jeremy. Jeremy, it's a long season. How do you unwind?
Well, I grab a Corona.
Go on.
And I watch football.
And
that is it.
Brilliant.
Find your game day good life.
This is Renee. Never heard of her? It's probably because she's not an influencer. She's more of a groundbreaker. Just look at the way she's reshaping